Very good. All right, thank you for the, welcome to the Lander County Commission meeting, Town Board of Battle Mountain and Austin Board of County Highways, Highway Commissions, November 30th, 2021. All right. Brian, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll have a moment of silence. All right, moving forward. Any agenda item may be taken out of order, may be combined for consideration by the public body, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. All right. Public comment for non-agendized items only. Persons are invited to submit comments in writing and or to attend to make comments on any non-agendized items at the board meeting, if any, and discussion of those comments at the discretion of the board. All public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per person, again, at the discretion of the board. Reasonable restrictions may be placed on public comments based upon time, place, and manner, but public comment based upon viewpoint may not be restricted. Do we have any public comment? All right. So it says, yeah, no, these are for the non-agendized items. Okay, all righty. So anything on non-agendized items? All right. Moving forward. For the consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action without extensive discussion. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda and discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Consent agenda materials are available at the Lander County Clerk's Office for viewing, and copies are available for a nominal charge. Number 1, approval of November 30th, 2021 special agenda notice. Number 2, approval of July 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes. So it jumped to 5.
Yes, I'd like to apologize. We had a couple mistakes on the consent side of this agenda. And so item number 2, and then 3, we did miss the numbering on the consent side of this agenda. I didn't review that because it's typically pretty standard, but it will be reviewed in the future.
So I'm going to just read it in with the number they have.
Correct.
Okay, so number 5, approval of September 23rd, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 6, approval of October 14th, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 7, approval of October 28th, 2021 meeting minutes. Number 8, approval of November 18th meeting minutes. And the second 8 will be approval of payroll change requests. So do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve number 5, which is the approval of September 23rd, 2021 meeting minutes, which actually is the third one listed.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so Patsy made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye. And I'll make a motion now that we approve number 1 with an addendum. That's the approval of November 30th special agenda notice with the corrections of the actual numbers that are assigned to our different minutes and payroll change requests.
Okay, so can I get a second? All right, Patsy made the motion, Brian second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, moving to item number 1. For discussion and possible action regarding the resignation of the Lander County Clerk and for the Lander County Commissioners to give directions to the county manager regarding the advertisement and procedure leading up to the appointment of the Lander County Clerk's position.
I believe you guys have the NRS in front of you regarding filling of resignations and vacancies, temporary appointments. A lot of that obviously just needs to follow NRS, and we do have some applications already. I have 4, I do believe, in my email currently for this position. Now, I'm not sure if they need to be resubmitted because it hasn't been properly advertised yet, or if you guys would like to accept them as is, but that's entirely up to this board.
Okay.
You can accept them as is. I mean, what we're doing today is we're having you guys declare that as of January
3rd.
As of January 3rd, the position is vacant, and that you are constructing a procedure to fill that vacancy prior to the 3rd of January. And that will be done by 2 weeks publication in the newspapers. And then all the applicants will come probably in a special meeting before this board, wherein you will take their, will give them interviews. So,
So with our advertising, we're looking to fill the position prior to December 31st when our clerk actually leaves. Is that correct?
well,
So, so they can work
you will fill it
together?
prior to, but they will not take the position until
Right.
January 3rd, yes.
Right, but we can hire them so that
That's why I
that person
want
could
you
train,
to-
right?
That's why I want you to call it a vacancy as of,
Now,
no, it's not a vacancy yet, but the vacancy will occur on December 31st.
right, but I mean, we want to start advertising
Well, that
now.
way we can do this on the 16th meeting. That's why we had the special meeting on this date, is so we could still meet the requirements of advertisement.
Right, so what you
So you
say-
can make that appointment on the 16th, and then they won't be in effect until the 3rd.
Right,
But if we approve someone on the 16th, and if they are available on the 16th, can we actually make that so they can work the last 2 weeks with our current clerk?
that's up to your current clerk.
As a commission, we can do that,
It's up to
if they
your-
are available?
It's up to your current clerk.
She's still in that office until the 3rd, so if she chose to open her
She's
door
certainly-
to somebody, she could, but if she chose not to, then that's her choice.
You can order somebody in that position.
No, if we hire them, I understand we wouldn't hire them till the 1st in that position. But I'm saying, can we construct it now so that if who we hire is available when we appoint them?
Well, you can ask them that, but it's still, at that time, it becomes the clerk, it's her call if she wants them to allow them into her office to train them for the 2 weeks prior to her leaving or not.
Got it.
Exactly.
So there isn't anything we can do to,
Well, she could do it. The clerk could do it.
You could request that she, consider your guys's,
that's okay. Just asking.
So, in
Would you-
motion, I'd like you to reference the letter from Sadie, the resignation letter. And then, again, to declare the vacancy as of the 31st of December. And then, set a procedure to include 2 things, to include 2-week publication and interviews by the board in the special meeting after that.
And I have a public comment that's online.
Okay,
So whenever are you ready for that
yeah,
one?
that's fine.
Matilda, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
afternoon.
My name is Matilda Guerrero. I'm the Democracy Manager at Silver State Voices, and I'm calling on behalf of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. We thank Ms. Sullivan and her office for their hard work, dedication, and resilience they displayed throughout the 2020 primary and general election. COVID-19 changed the way Nevadans engaged with our democracy. We saw a national shortage of election workers, many feeling unsafe in voting traditionally in person, and rampant disinformation that led to a high level of distrust in our electoral process. Ms. Sullivan has been dedicated to ensuring accessible and equal access to the polls throughout her time with Lander County. Throughout her work, she made sure voting systems were properly vetted and working so residents of Lander County can trust their voting systems. We commend Ms. Sullivan for establishing relationships with the community and ensuring that Lander County's transition to a new voting system will be smooth and successful. Ms. Sullivan accomplished so much with a limited time frame, capacity, and resources. For those reasons and more, she deserves to be celebrated and remembered as a public servant dedicated to democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Is that all the public comment we have?
That's all I have.
Scott, you wanna take this one? I'll make a motion, nobody has any other questions, that we accept the letter of resignation from Lander County Clerk, Sadie Sullivan, and to fill the vacancy
And declare,
and declare the position vacant January 3rd of 2022.
well, December 31st.
Oh, December 31st,
Yeah,
2021.
To be filled on January.
Okay, to be filled on January 3rd, 2022. And to give direction to our county manager to handle the advertisement of that vacant position.
By setting a procedure to include 2 weeks publication and then an open interview in front of the board.
Okay, let my motion reflect what Ted just said.
We need to cut off date,
And the cutoff date will be
December 15th, 4
December,
o'clock,
December 15th at
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Okay, my motion will reflect that as well.
I'll second it.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstained? Are we abstaining? Should all be one of the people applying?
I would ask a clarification. When you said our cutoff is 4 o'clock on the 15th?
For applications.
For their letters of interest.
Okay, I thought you were going to do the interviews prior to our next meeting,
No, there'll be an interview.
The interviews will be on the 16th during the meeting. It
right
has to
here.
be open interviews.
So, okay, so do we need a separate motion then to see whether we want to accept the ones that have already come to our?
No.
No, you guys can just give me that direction.
Oh, okay. Well, how do you feel about it? You want to accept those
Oh, absolutely.
that are already in? Okay, absolutely. They do not need to reapply.
Are we all done with that one?
I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I'm comfortable.
All right. All right, for number 2, discussion and possible action to approve, disapprove a modification of the contract between Lander County and Dr. Robert J. Wilcourt for services as a community health medical director. Okay.
So I did review the concern brought forward by Ms. Smith.
Hold on, she's gonna come up in public comment.
And I would like to point out a couple things. One is that the county invested a substantial amount of money into another individual in our community to do this exact job that we're doing now a few years ago, and it was never came to fruition prior to COVID-19. Now that COVID has taken effect, it seems that there's a little bit of pushback on doing this because it appears as if we're trying to compete with the local hospital or do our own thing, when in reality This is something that was gonna take place prior to COVID, and we even had a individual that used to work for the county that now currently is employed by the hospital, that we paid for a portion of the schooling just to fulfill these same things that we're doing now that we're modifying the contract for. So I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out before we got into the meat of this.
I think the confusing part was that we already have a contract with Dr. Wilcourt, of course, for the other things. And so why we wanted to amend this to just have one contract, or whether we indeed wanted the second contract to be the medical director. Does that make sense?
No, the item in the agenda actually says it's just modifications to the current contract.
Right,
You're
no,
just
no, I know
modifying.
that, but I'm saying, why did we do that? To choose to do that with one contract rather than two? Was there a reason?
Yes, because at the time that we initially contracted with Dr. Wilcourt, he wasn't sure how much he would like doing what he is doing, and to what level he would like to take it. And then the more that he's done it, the more that he's liked it, and he enjoys it and wants to continue forward, so I support that.
Okay. I think that's where the confusing part came in with why we're doing a modification if we want to hire him for something else, that's all.
Okay.
I have some questions. So on, down on number 17,
Are you discussing the comments?
huh?
Are you discussing the comments?
No. Not,
Page 3, you're looking at?
on page 3, yeah, page 3.
Number
says-
17.
Yeah, down, it was on numbers to provide, the wellness examinations for children and adults. And then 18, offer, for, adjunctive chronic illness care. Now, you might throw that in there, does that have to do with, hospice, or is that just regular care? And then down on provide acute illness and, minor injury care. So that, for me, looks like he's doing the same thing that the hospital already does, and that we're going in direct competition with the hospital if if they're gonna be billing insurances and doing that, why are we doing that? Going and competing, on other issues within the community, we have gone against people doing that and competing with, other industries, like the school competing with the gym and those different things. So to me, it looks like we're doing the same thing, that we're competing against the hospital. And then the other part is that we have taxpayer money that goes to the hospital through taxes to have this hospital, and then we're turning around and paying this amount of money again to basically have another hospital or another clinic. And that's very concerning to me that we would, and I was not aware of whatever was in prior to all of this happening with the other employee. I was never ever aware of that stuff. Not that that matters, but that would have been concerning then as well, but this is concerning to me now, so.
I guess my answer to that would be if somebody chooses not to go to this hospital, they can go to Winnemucca, they can go to Elko, they can, that's a choice that we have. Whether they want to go down here to see us or whether they want to go over to the hospital, it's all the same community. This is a community hospital, even if it's separate district. It's still a community hospital. It's not a privately owned hospital. And so it should be treated like that. It's not as competition like a private business would be per se. And I think that we need to look at it from that perspective more so than we do from the perspective of we're competing, because it's community. It'd be like the rec center competing with, the county courthouse. Well, it's all taxpayer funded. It's community based. So we aren't taking from a private business to provide another, it's all government. So to say that we're competing, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that statement. I think that people can go anywhere they would like. This was the foresight when the other employees' schooling was paid for or a portion of it was paid for to provide these same services that we're now moving forward on. So I don't know that I would agree completely with that.
Do other wellness clinics in the state offer these same services?
In bigger cities, there are, yes.
What counties don't have county health projects?
But
We should be celebrating this.
I have concern for liability as well, as far as having acute patients over there and things like that. The licensing we have to go through for, I mean, what sort of licensing do we have to do if it's going to be ran basically like a clinic? Is there licensing that we have to do just like the clinic here has
Well, we
to
can
do?
only do as much as that provider is licensed to do. I mean, they can't do above and beyond what they're licensed to do. You know,
Well, that
a
part I
primary
understand.
care provider can only provide that level of service. I guess I'm confused
So if
by,
he would have his own clinic, so to speak, he had his own office, and he'd have to have certain licensing and things like that to run that office. Now, to do this office, are we gonna have to have these certain licenses that the state requires us to do for this to be running as a clinic? When you're going into a different realm, when you're starting to go in, when you're not going into, like, with the wellness stuff for like, birth control for teenagers, or we're dealing with STDs and these kinds, now you're going up to like some acute care and things like that. I would imagine that your liability obviously is going to go up, and and the certificates and things through the state, to be approved through the state to be allowed to do that there.
Commissioner, this is an independent contractor contract, and the independent contractor, it's up to them to establish and pay for all the licenses.
So he has to, just like, so as though it was his own business, so to speak,
Right.
he's gonna have to pay for everything
Right, as an independent
as
contractor.
an independent contractor. The
Right.
county's not going to be, and the liability, all the liability falls with him.
Yes. Well, we would have our umbrella insurance covering it since it's a county, building.
only above and beyond what cares are taking, you know, past what we're currently giving.
In this setting, Dr. Wilcourt will not be an independent contractor, will he? He'd be an independent contractor?
Oh, yes, he will still be independent.
He'll be independent. He
Yes.
will
He
not
will
be
be
an employee.
responsible for his certifications.
He is
Yes.
responsible for his certifications, correct?
Yes, he will not be employer, sorry, Commissioner.
So do we have,
Amy Nelson. And my thoughts on this are from just a member of this community. I look at it really the same way I look at with the option for the choices in schools now. So we have the traditional public government school, and now we have the county building, which has a different choice for parents to make to get their needs met. As most of you know, I refuse to wear a mask. I don't wear a mask anywhere. I lost my job because I refused to wear a mask. So I have not been able to go into a clinic setting since this COVID-19 began because I wouldn't be served. So for me, I as a member of this community would like to see more choice in medical services. I don't want to participate in an institution or an entity that's beholden to the government and to some of these directives, which personally I feel are unconstitutional and criminal. And with all of that said, choice is the American way. And I believe that as a community, the more options you give your community, the more people who will move here and participate differently, because maybe the county facility works through your resolutions where this general hospital works through the directives, and certain people feel safer that way. And they're entitled to go to the county hospital or the Battle Mountain General Hospital because they feel safer with some of those directives. Personally, that doesn't work for me, and I have not been able to access medical care since this began. And to me, that's concerning, and there are a lot of people like me. So that's my thought is, it's just choice. It's about the American way, it's about freedom. It's about sovereignty and people getting to go what best fits them, and this provides that option.
okay, and I respect that, but on item 14, up at the top, it says contractor shall adhere to CDC and OSHA guidelines, which is the federal guidelines, so you're still having to fall within those guidelines. So-
We are still falling within them guidelines as we operate here in the courthouse, and we recommend many things. But we don't demand them. So, you know, they have many guidelines, But to say that they have the controls because we're going by their guidelines, a lot of their guidelines are recommendations. And you'll see that throughout. And that's one of the things and one of the reasons why Lander County's remained open through most of this. And granted, there's two sides of that, but is because it's recommendations on most of them.
Any other public comment? You wanna come up, please?
Hi.
Katie Smith here.
You wanna hit the button for us, please?
Sorry, turn it green. This is Katie Smith. I'm a Lander County resident. As you can see, I've spent a little time reviewing your contract. I don't have a lot of angst about any of this. I don't know Dr. Wilcourt. I've never seen Dr. Wilcourt professionally, so have no animosities or any prejudgments on his part. What I was looking at was the contract itself, and I am concerned that this contract is not implementable, if that's a good word. I don't know why we have a section 5 and a section 6 both, because this doesn't talk about scope of work. But let's start with what I'm really, really concerned about is why you guys called a special meeting today to enact a contract modification tomorrow,
That's not what it was for. The special meeting was actually called for the vacancy.
right?
Okay, that's
But this
what it
is an
was for.
agenda item on
Yeah, but
it.
it got put on there, but the special meeting
And the-
was not called specifically for
Right.
that. It was called for.
But your period of performance starts tomorrow. So I'm just interested in why on a weekday at 1:00, this discussion is being held. Because as a constituent, if I was working or I had kids in school, I wouldn't be here. And I don't, choice, right? But people need to be able to review and express their concerns or interests in this. I'm also interested in knowing what data was used to determine the need for change in your contract. Whereas it is deemed services of Dr. Wilcourt are both necessary and desirable in the best interest, which is right out of the previous contract and the previous contract to that. But what kind of data did you guys collect to say that this is actually a change that needs to occur? I know that you guys did some previous work prior to COVID. Is there data from then that is available for people to look at to make their determination whether or not due diligence has actually been performed in determining costs and allocating funding? Is there a budget line available for the health services?
So I would like to address a couple things. First is the meeting would have taken place on a weekday during working hours at 9 a.m. on the 16th if
Right.
if it wasn't today. I was the one who put it on this agenda, so it would it's one less thing for the next agenda. We're only having one meeting a month for this
Right.
month and next month, so that was one of the reasons. And the previous county manager was the one that did most of the work on that. But it was to recoup some of the funds instead of it just being a loss. Because then you can bill insurance, you can do some things of that nature when you bring people into your clinic to work with them.
Okay.
And so that was where and that's part of where the need of, and I believe $20,000 or $40,000 we spent on somebody to go get the education to get this program put in place that was supposed to be put in place that never came to fruition, that led us to where we are. And it's not based on just choice, which now it's more options for the community, which I think is a great thing.
I agree.
But it was looked at by the previous county manager, so I can't speak to a lot of that. However, it was to recoup some of the funds that are lost through just a standard
And
billing of,
How would you recoup those?
through insurance billing.
Oh, you mean
and
the $40,000 that was spent on training?
on
of a
training and the
previous
position as
person?
well.
Right, okay, so that set aside, has there been an increase in demand for services at the county health services?
Oh, if we offer the services,
no.
of course there is.
Is there already an increase in demand for those services? Are people, I mean, I heard one lady say she wasn't seen by anybody because she didn't want to wear a mask. Has there been an increase in demand for the services? Do we know how many people are being seen on a weekly basis?
So
Do
I
we
would
know
say
what
just from
percentage?
testimony today that there would be an increase in demand just for those who can't go to the typical,
Who choose not to,
correct.
who
Who
choose
have that
not to, let's use
choice.
the right word, who choose
Yes,
not to go.
correct.
And so for me, I'm a data-driven person, and I don't make changes to contracts because there's always costs associated with that. And for me, it's not just the cost of paying somebody to get trained, it's not just the cost that is down in does section 7 replace this entirety, it's the cost of increased staff tasking at the CHS. Right now, are they not chartered, I don't know what the word, contracted, do they contract with the with the county to
Our staff
provide?
now?
Yeah.
No, they are actually county employees, the two
This-
women that work over there are county employees.
Okay, but is that facility set aside to only perform the tasks that you mentioned earlier?
Right now, that's all
The
was being-
wellness.
That's, in the past, that's all they were working, that they
Right,
worked on.
and so there's no concerns legally that using this county building as a, well, I'm just gonna use this as a term, private practice by Dr. Wilcourt to provide primary care services and other services that are currently being provided elsewhere.
This is not private practice. The funds do not go into Dr. Wilcourt's pocket.
They don't, he's
No.
getting paid. He's getting paid
as an
quite well.
independent contractor.
Well, then they do go into his pocket. And so he is operating on county, in a county facility, is he not? Is that health services?
He's
Facility?
offering service, county services,
Okay, but he's not a county employee,
And he's
he's an
paid as
independent
a-
contractor.
just like the public defender
And
and a lot
so
of other.
because,
Do you wanna let me speak?
well, I'd
And I'll
like
let you
to,
speak.
I know,
So-
I know what you're saying, I
So
hear
you're
you.
anticipating what I'm gonna say.
Well,
Well,
I heard
you
you
can
say
Let
it
him finish so
before.
we can go.
You
to
can
the-
finish and then I'll.
Yes, that would be good, since I have the floor.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.
And I would, if you don't mind, I'll read through them real quick. I just want to make a few points and then we can go back and talk to Ted's information. I think that this is an expansion of services to the CHS, and I think there are costs associated with it. What I would have liked to seen was a cost-benefit analysis done, where you can actually track what the expenditures are, what the demand is, what's driving this change. Because I didn't see anything in here that said what the actual need for change in the contract was. And the scope of work is a repeat of section 5 with the exception of 5 items, which you mentioned earlier that you had concerns about. Those things, the annual physicals, the adjunctive chronic illness, the acute illness and minor, and then supporting the health officer. And in here, I wasn't sure if we were talking about Dr. Wilcourt's role as the medical director or Dr. Wilcourt's role as the deputy health services officer. Because apparently he wears 2 hats in this community, is that correct? Okay, and so I'm certain that there's gonna be some delineation of duties between the 2 of those positions, and it's not clear in this contract what they are. And who's gonna monitor his performance is always a question, no matter who it is, you could put anybody's name in there. And then my big concern was, does section 7 in the modification completely replace in its entirety section 7 of the original contract? Because the original contract deals with getting paid $50,000 a year to do the work of that contract. And this modification is adding in or replacing, I'm not sure which it is, the $120 per hour times 20 hours per week times 4 weeks a month times 12 months a year for 2 years, which comes out to be, for the life of the contract, $230,000. So is that added then to the $48,000 or $50,000 in the previous contract?
No, it is not.
So that needs to be clarified.
It's clarified, this is a modification.
This is a modified
This
contract.
will be the
But
only.
does this, that's why I'm saying, does this, because nowhere in your contract does
This
it
will
say
be
the
the only
purpose of
existing
this
contract.
contract modification is to,
Again, you gotta let me talk.
well,
I'm trying to answer your question.
thank you.
A modification of the contract modifies the original contract. And therefore, there's only gonna be one existing contract if this is approved. If this is not approved, there's one. If it's modified, there's still one.
So is your answer to my question, yes, it replaces the original section 7 in its entirety?
Yes,
So he is only going to be paid $115,200 per year to do both services of the health
That's
officer
correct.
and the medical director?
that's
Okay,
correct.
and it would have been nice to see that, Because I have dealt with modifications, I'm part of the defense acquisition workforce, and I have dealt with modifications to contracts for 30 years.
So you're
He's just
referring,
He's not the
different.
health officer. He's only the
He's
health
a deputy.
director.
Deputy, can I get the contract?
he's a deputy health officer is what you're referring to, and the health officer is Dr. Troy Ross, which has not changed. This is a modification.
Right,
So the deputy is no different than the deputy DA that's in the district
but what
attorney's
is
office.
but we were paying him
We're two different hats.
We're paying him $4,000?
Yes, we've included both of them
As
into this
deputy
one
health
modified
officer?
contract.
Because
So
this
it's-
only addresses, this contract addresses the medical director, community medical director. Please understand what I'm trying to say.
I'm
If I
trying.
were gonna execute this contract, I would have clear delineation of duties based on the fact that he has two hats within this community, and I would understand what it costs to do both of those, and I would have deliverables relative to that. And there's a lot of that that's not even included in here, maybe I'm speaking about things people aren't familiar with, but that's just the way I approached it for my review. And then the impact to the CHS staff, if they're gonna be required to start doing billing for insurance, whereas right now they're only billing Medicare, Medicaid, is that true? And they'll be collecting fees, cause right now they don't collect fees if the people are on Medicare or Medicaid, correct? So there is an impact to that staff's tasking, and that will, maybe they don't get paid anymore, but it certainly needs to be considered before this is approved. And then there wasn't any mention of frequency of payment in section 7 of the modified contract, and there was in the previous contract, so maybe it's just a deleted line. I'm not sure how often is all the funding gonna be given up front, or is he gonna work and then bill the county for the work that he's performed? And is that automatically assumed that it's gonna be 20 hours a week that he's getting paid for 4 weeks a month and 12 months a year? And then, isn't Dr. Wilcourt currently working at Battle Mountain General Hospital? Is he available to start tomorrow?
I can't, that was not, I can answer.
I just think those are things that need to be considered if you're gonna start.
Okay, to
Period
answer
of
the first
performance.
question, it's my understanding that this was negotiated between our county manager and Dr. Wilcourt, so yes. To a prior question of yours, on page 4 or 6, under 7, second paragraph, that health medical director / deputy county health officer is there by omission. Unfortunately, that was left in there, and that needs to be stricken out. And if the county decides to go along with this, I would ask that they allow me to modify that and strike that out.
Yeah.
And I thank you for pointing that out.
Sure. Well, normally with a contract modification, you get a list of changes made to the original contract, so that when you're reviewing it, you have that, you don't have to review the whole
Well,
thing
in my
side by
35
side.
years of practice, that's not true.
Maybe so.
So,
And to finish off, what is the actual benefit to the county constituents? I know that we heard one today that should be able to go to a community or county-provided services, and that we are paying for those additional services at the CHS with county funds, correct? So I just want to make sure we're not doing any kind of duplication of effort, just like you. It's not necessary. This is only a community of less than 5,000 people, right? So there's not going to be a big line at the door, I don't think. But everybody's entitled to quality care, and you have to address that. So with that, that's, I think, the basis of my comments, not to be argumentative, Ted, but just, I wanted to get through my comments.
Oh, no, that's no, I have no problem with your comment, and I appreciate it, because I'm gonna ask them to delete that wherever it's mentioned in the contract. That wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, you just need a point of clarification, and when you do a modification, it's nice to know what the modification is actually.
That's how you've done, that's not how we've done.
Yeah.
That's not how I've done
Don't
it in my 35, 40 years of
I just thought maybe there were county regulations that,
No, there
or
isn't.
standards that stipulate what goes into a modification.
So then, I have a couple other questions. I know that because of, the overabundance of funds it took to get, for Kingston Clinic that they had there, it was $1 million, or so that was, in the red there. Are we going to, with this clinic, are they looking at utilizing or doing anything with Kingston and Austin, or is it only Battle Mountain? Because it saddens me to know that Kingston and Austin, you know, they have that rural clinic there, but there's rarely ever anybody there, and Kingston has nothing. And so to have this here, when we already have a hospital, and then have this on top of it, and then Kingston and Austin really don't have anything. And that's a huge concern to me, for the Kingston, because it was over $1 million that the hospital had to write off because it, but then those people lost their health care and had to drive to Fallon or wherever, and then we have, you know, two things here, and they have nothing. And so that is also a concern of mine. Any other public comment?
Any questions for me?
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you again for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Jason Blake for the record from the hospital. You know, I've been here for nearly 4 years, and this is the second time I've sat here or stood before this commission to talk about the competitive nature between our entities. This discussion did happen, I don't know the exact dates, I don't have that good of a memory, nearly 3.5 years ago. And Keith Westengard was the county manager, and there was concerns about the county health nurse performing, who was going to be Abby, and she was getting that new licensure, that she was going to provide some services competitive with the hospital. During that meeting, I can't remember all of you that were on here. I think maybe Kathy and Patsy, maybe some others, maybe Brian. It was explained to me at that point that the county was not going to compete against the hospital in that way, that it was going to function similar to the other county health offices or community health offices that serve the uninsured and impoverished population. That's what these other offices are doing. They're serving those that don't have insurance, those that can't pay for insurance, those that just can't do it. Those that are insured have that other opportunity to choose and go other places. But that's what the community health offices are for, is for those that can't provide it. This does create a competitive nature. I heard it from Bert. This does create a competitive nature. The way this contract is written, Dr. Wilcourt will, and the county will become credentialed with all the third-party insurances. And they will bill for them, and you guys will bill for them. That will duplicate services for this county. So not only does the county pay a tax for the hospital district, now some of their same tax money is also going to go into this service that is duplicative, and is going to compete against that. I also, you know, we all play in a sandbox, and we've got a pretty tight sandbox around here. And we can see everybody playing in the sandbox. Sometimes we get dust and dirt kicked in our eyes. This kind of feels that way, that the county may be kicking some dust in the eyes of another county entity that, yes, is struggling along, trying to do the best we can through all of this craziness and chaos and political mess. We're trying to do the best we can to serve not only the right, but also the left, to provide a facility that serves all that come through our doors. I just want to put my thoughts out there to you that please don't create competitive nature here. We've got to work together in more situations than just this. There's other places that we have to rub shoulders, and hopefully we don't create a mess so that we can't take care of each other in other areas. And that's not a threat. That's nothing. I don't want that to be misconstrued. But in a close neighborhood, in a close county, we have to be kind and understandable of what each other is doing. And so I just want to leave that with you. I don't know how this is going to play out. Yes, Dr. Wilcourt does have a contract with the hospital. Yes, this increases the hours that he would be responsible to the county. How does that jive? I don't know. Trying to get that information has been rather difficult. I have tried Bert to get a hold of him to get some information. I've tried to get a hold of Dr. Wilcourt to get some information from him. Pretty tight-lipped, which is concerning to me that we're not being open and honest with this information so that we can make good decisions. But I hope that whatever decision you make, that it doesn't turn into a competitive nature so that we can continue to thrive in this little community and work together as brothers and sisters and neighbors. With that, I close my remarks.
And then I have a question too. On most contracts, and this is directed at Ted, it made me think of something. I know in a lot of contracts, there's no compete clauses. So if there is, and I don't know, it's been a long time, don't know the ins and outs of his contract, but he's basically competing against a contract that he also has with the hospital. Is that something that is?
The contract he has with the hospital is between him and the hospital. Okay. Has nothing to do with the county.
So does that?
That's up to him.
Okay.
If he can't perform, if he's out of performance with that contract, the CEO of the hospital is going to take care of that. And the conversation between Dr. Wilcourt and the CEO of the hospital is between those two. I've never had any discussions, and I don't think Portola has, about that particular contract between the hospital and Dr. Wilcourt. The only thing I was just given some information and said, modify the contract, and that's what I attempted to do. But no compete clauses are standard in a lot of things. It's just like the hospital probably has them in with their doctors so that you don't start private practice in the same town. But if your doctor came in and started a private practice with the CEO of the hospital coming here and say, we don't want them to compete, don't give them a business license, I don't know. To me, this is just additional service. I don't see it as pulling away anything from the hospital. It's giving additional services to those people that don't want to or they can't because of their personal integrity and on choices like for the COVID or for masks and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why people may access the services if given. I mean, it's up to you five to decide if you want to give the additional services. That's what this is. It's additional services. Now, like I said, I just constructed the contract and I didn't do that great a job, apparently. But that's all I can answer to.
Okay, any other public comment?
I did not reach out to Dr. Wilcourt on his contract. I figured that's his personal business, what contracts he get himself
I just
into.
thought, because there was something in there that flipped my.
But I would like to address something that Jason did say. He did reach out last night. He sent me a text, and he also tried to call me today. I was in a meeting, but I feel that these are best suited for right here in the public. Anything that I have to say or Jason has to say, this right here, this is the best place to sort it out. I've nothing to hide. There's no reason for us to have phone calls and backdoor meetings over what can be discussed best for the public to hear all of it on both sides. And if he's right, we're all in the same sandbox. I want to serve every constituent of Lander County the best that I can in the seat that I'm in, and I think the best way to do that is sitting right here in front of everybody. And if I'm wrong in doing that, then I apologize, but that's just how I conduct business. So.
Your job is to provide services for this county and figure out how to do that. And I would just ask that if we do approve this modification, that we just hold off on the southern part of the county and serving there until we get this thing rolling. And then you come back to us and tell us when it's time that we can do something down there, because I share that concern too.
Yes, and I would like to address some of that as well. Ms. Ancho's concerns is the Kingston Clinic was run by the hospital, it wasn't run by the county. And from a message that I received, we do believe that we can provide some services down there, but it is a building block, and this isn't right now initially starting for Austin, and this is starting for here in Battle Mountain, and hopefully this can progress into something better. We've had significant struggles with anything in the south, whether it be the clinic or the ambulance being successful operating it through the hospital. And I don't mean that as a knock at the hospital. It's just the south is a different animal. It's really hard to find employees. There's a lot of things a lot of dynamics that go into providing services to Austin and Kingston that hopefully you guys can understand. And like I say, I don't mean that as a shot at the hospital, because it's a tough deal. And without anything else down there, it makes it that much harder. Where we have the road and bridge and we have the water and sewer and we have some other departments down there, it makes it a little more fluent for the county to do them things, and that's part of the county.
Thank you for your comments, most certainly on the south.
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna point out that there is a 30-day termination clause for no cause in the contract. And you guys are always interested in that. You always ask me, but I'm gonna throw that out there. There is. So if you decide to accept this and things aren't working out, you can get out in 30 days.
Thank you. We usually do ask, but I saw it was in there. Thank you. Yes, the south is totally different, and I don't want them, and I don't want you to ever think that we have forgotten them, because they're always on our mind and what we can do, and there's some things that we can go forward with. We've had some opportunities that have come up that we've kind of jumped onto, and not always working out right, but it's in our sights, in our vision, and hopefully that will all come about. In the interim, one of my biggest concerns with this right now is the fact that first of all, we've got a doctor who's going to be charging $120 an hour, and with most of our billing, they do not allow that kind of billing amounts. So either way, we'd be doing it through an insurance company. They're probably not going to allow that particular amount. But I've dealt in insurance claims individually, Medicare, the whole works, for a long, long time. And to get somebody qualified to do the actual billing properly is one of the main problems that people have, whether they're an individual physician or whether they're a corporation or whether they're a hospital. To get the right people trained is so difficult, and we find that many of them over a period of time actually go with professional offices that bill. And that's why if you go to Battle Mountain Hospital, and you may get a bill from John Smith Corporation because they're billing for the hospital and so forth. So there's an untold amount here that's going to come if the clinic did any kind of an increase at all, that we would have to move into. And I really am not ready to go the whole clinic idea right now. I'm just not. I think we've got too many unknowns, and if that's the way we'd like to go, I think it should be considered a little bit more. I'm really concerned with the things just jumping into it. And I know that we had an idea for the medical director before, but I never saw it as an independent contractor per se. And so I'm really not in favor of what we have. I would like very much for us to still continue to look at something like this. If you want to expand the clinic, I'm not so sure I want to expand it this way.
And that, to spear something right quick, for medical records too, like the hospital has Athena, there's specific guidelines that have to be taken that are actual federal laws now, how medical records have to be kept. No, Athena, well, the hospital goes through Athena, that's why you're billing so that people understand why people get a billing from somewhere else. When you go to the medical records that's run through Athena, those are the ones who pop out the bills and they go, that's why they come from somewhere else. And just the medical records alone, the way it kept it, you can't do it old school. That's why Dr. Peters got out of it to begin with and enjoyed it over there, because it was a lot less. So when you start getting into patient care this type, there's a whole different ballgame as far as the way you have to keep the medical records.
Well, I don't know, I think that's a misstatement. And I say that because we currently keep records over there now.
Right, that's what I was
We have to treat people over there currently, so we are keeping up on medical records. To say that we aren't doing that would, I don't think that'd be a
That's
full.
not what I mean, that's not what, I mean, and I guess that, you're right. But how does that, no, and I know, because I'm thinking, don't mock me, I'm trying to think, it's not, don't mock me, not at all. That's a big, medical records are a big deal, and I know they're being kept over there, but I think, does something fall differently when you go into that type of care, was my question. You're going into a
I think
entirely
you're referring to,
different
there's
animal.
difference in billing. Currently we bill Medicaid, and that's about, I don't know, probably 90% of Neela's job over there is to make sure that we're billing insurances. So we do have some familiarity with that. We do have Dr. Ross on board who's going to help us with the other side of this as well if this is to go through. So it's not going in blindly, or some of these processes aren't being dealt with at some level or another currently.
And that's not what I was.
So I just want to make sure that
I was just thinking of the lot that you're going into bigger waters, and so I didn't know if there was a difference or not in that, because I just know it's such a huge deal with the way these records are kept. So I don't know. I wasn't saying that we weren't keeping records. That's not what I was referring to at all. I just know what a huge headache it was when the federal government came in and said, you're gonna keep the records. So if you're in California and you're from Nevada, you get a record, they're gonna pull you up and they're gonna know what your medical records are here. So that's where my mind was going. So with that being said, is there any other further?
Sorry, Amy Nelson, I just wanna make sure you know when I laughed, I was not mocking you, I would
No,
never
you're
mock
not,
you.
that's not what.
But what I do appreciate is when we're all kind of confused, and I love your humility, I love your professional humility, your personal humility, and so I laugh because I appreciate
think you were
that,
mocking me.
okay, good, I wanted to make sure, so I appreciate that. I appreciate that you guys have good discourse and you disagree and you argue, but you know, that's part of the process.
Well, I was gonna say, as far as how things are done medically and correctly, a lot of that's gonna fall to Dr. Ross and Dr. Wilcourt, correct?
Their practices they have to follow.
Right.
Or they can lose their licensure.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm personally in favor for it for the simple fact that it gives choice. Not necessarily competition, although I can see it being viewed that way. But what about the people that they go there but they don't want to wear a mask, but they go anyway and wear the mask, which I think if they had a choice, they would go elsewhere. I mean, I know, I can probably count on my two hands, people that have voiced their opinion of not liking it. And I said, well, we don't have much say over it. They're their own district. But it's like, so that's why I like it, for the simple fact that it does give choice to residents of Lander County, so.
Any further public comment? All right, then it's up for you guys to
You
make.
ready for a motion?
Yep.
So if we were to make a motion, Ted, we'd have to correct the one part of the contract.
Commissioner, if you ask me to make corrections and strike out the language containing health medical director / deputy county health officer, wherever that is in the contract, that should fix the problem.
Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the modification of the contract between Lander County and Dr. Robin J. Wilcourt for services as the community health medical director, and to direct our DA to make the noted changes.
Second.
All right, Brian made the motion, Art second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 3. All right. So, going down to number 3, do we have any correspondence for further agenda notice items?
As long as I have the direction to accept the current applications, we will
So we'll
post
plan
this.
for interviews on the
Yes, we
16th
will,
of
we will
December.
fly this, and then we will have these interviews on the 16th agenda for you guys to select a clerk, and we will also honor Sadie on that agenda as well. So if the clerk's office could ask her to be here, I'd appreciate it.
How many so far?
4 so far.
4?
Yes.
And then
Forward the names before, no, you can't forward the names before the meeting.
Not before the posting is closed, so the 15th, when it closes, we will forward all that.
This is just a little bit unusual, I know, because we usually aren't filling this type of a position, but we've always had a selection committee that has at least has looked things over, and we've had recommendations with people that are looking a little bit more and vetting the people that are coming forward and stuff, so we just aren't, I mean, what if we have, 7 or 8 people, and I understand we need to make a decision, but I would like some input for some people that have a little bit more expertise in hiring. Does that make sense? Because usually we have a committee that at least looks at them.
We had it for the treasurer position, a committee, and that did not work out well. If you recall that.
how was that process done? Was it done in an open meeting?
What we had, there wasn't a lot of openness. Everyone on the committee, and I was on the committee, we looked at all the applications, didn't interview the people at all, didn't talk to each other, and then we gave our recommendation. And then when you guys got it, you just went to the applications, you didn't interview, no interviews were done at all. So we thought this would be the most open, to have interviews, and you can put 5 or 10 minutes on each interview, and interview all the applicants, and you'll have their paperwork in front of you,
And then we'll have to select a person in that meeting?
I would advise it.
So I guess if there's any deliberation, if somebody likes one candidate versus another, you can deliberate about that in an open meeting?
Yes, you can, but here's the thing, Bertolo wants to set it the next day at the end. I mean, that doesn't give you a lot of time to go over the applications. So I'd like to give you like 4 or 5 days to do it, but it is what it is.
The closing date of that and making that meeting, that's why we had this special on this date, is so we can make that work. I think that the screening process maybe you're referring to is those who do qualify to even apply for the position. And that can be looked at by myself and Ted to make sure that applicants fully qualify before they come in here and waste your time, because there may be people that put in that aren't, when I say qualified, that if they couldn't apply for that as a county resident, then they can't apply for it not being a county resident.
Right. I was gonna say, what are the
so-
qualifications? I mean, cause to run for that position, there are no qualifications.
Yeah,
Anybody
Right,
can run
as an
for it.
elected official, you don't
It's an
need
elected official, right.
qualifications, you
You have to
just
be 21
sell yourself to the,
And
to
an
the,
elector from Lander County.
Right, electorate from
And
Lander County.
with no
Felonies,
felonies.
yeah.
Yes, so there are a few criteria that we
That's
could
it.
possibly look at that may save a couple candidates, but
Well, that's the only thing we look at.
And
yeah,
so we'll
outside
have
of
to
that,
do-
we would drop everything else in front of you guys, and then the deliberation would happen in an open meeting for the public to hear and see, and
I would suggest that you give directions in the publication to ask the applicants to write a 1 or 2 page essay on why they deserve the job. So
Right.
that will give you more insight.
And then the applicants that we do have thus far, the DA's office or somebody's gonna have to perform background checks prior to that, no?
I don't think so.
Not in an elected
not
position.
appointed, not appointed.
So,
We could only advertise it once in the paper as opposed to the twice in the paper, which is what Liz just brought up. And that would, then we could get any applications to you guys as they come in, but it still doesn't change the fact that some could come in the day before.
Well, you can make the cutoff date. The reason we did it the way we did it is because the advertisement's only gonna go in the paper on the 8th and the 15th. We only have a Wednesday publication for the paper. and the 15th is the second time it would go. So if you just do the advertisement on the 8th, we could also put it out on social media, that's completely up to you. And you could do the cutoff date on the 10th at 4 o'clock, which means at 4 o'clock after that time, once we get all the paperwork, then we can submit all those to you guys, and you would have the whole weekend up until the
Is,
16th to review
and
it.
then running it once in the paper, that suffices NRS? We don't have to.
NRS doesn't dictate an
There's no-
actual,
You're setting the procedure.
Okay,
So if you wanna if you wanna
I like
change
that
it,
idea better.
then you need to,
re-modify
you
your
need
motion.
to, open it up again
We need to amend the motion.
and amend the motion.
Want to reopen that, Kevin?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and, open that back up so that,
If you need to reread, yeah.
number one, so can be modified.
No, they just don't.
So basically, we'll just modify the motion to where we advertise for 1 week.
We can advertise starting today and have a cutoff on December 10th at 4 o'clock.
Right, and then run some postings on social media?
Yes,
Okay.
wherever
so
you want it, yeah.
Let my motion reflect that change.
Okay, so then a second.
Who said, well, the one that seconded it has to approve it.
Okay, so he's, all right, so we just, we're going to second, all right, so all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, and all opposed.
Okay, could I just have
Opposed, I'm abstaining.
a clarification then? Are there any restrictions as far as our own employees putting in for that position?
There's no restrictions at all.
Okay, so we don't, but because it's an elected position, we don't have to advertise in-house first or anything
Right.
like that.
Right,
So,
that's
okay,
correct.
thank you.
They would have to forfeit the position.
I mean, if they get
They
appointed,
would have to forfeit their position if they were selected.
if they were selected, they'd have to forfeit their current position. But that wouldn't be unless they're selected. They don't have to forfeit it to
Right.
apply for it.
Okay, that's good,
Right.
because when you're running for office, that's a whole different thing.
Right.
So, this person that we actually appoint will stay on for the whole year next year,
Yes,
and may or may not decide to run.
right.
So we're not filling an interim position, but only till the next election. The
That's
next
right.
election, they go with the full-time,
Yes.
not,
They'll have to run in the
not to fill
election.
Sadie's.
No, they have to run for the office.
This one will fill Sadie's seat.
Right, well, when is, I guess what I'm asking is,
Sadie ends,
would Sadie have run next year?
yes.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at, whether we're
Yes.
filling hers, okay,
Yes, so
but
it's
that
only
it
1
is,
year.
got it, thank you.
So no, we don't have any other further.
So I'd like a report. How we coming on our skating rink?
Honeywell's actually pouring today and tomorrow, and then general fencing will be out probably the next week to put up the fencing, and then we'll have the skating rink out.
Nice.
Nice.
So by the end of the month, I would say.
By the end of the month?
I would just, I don't want to
Will you have
overpromise
it
you.
Done before Christmas, or?
I'll work on it.
So Sean, would you like to identify?
Sean Baker for the record, the end of December. But that'll also
This
depend,
month's still November.
yeah, it'll also depend on what general fencing, how fast they can get out here. But
That's for the complete project. I'd make sure you clarify for just the rink itself and the pad for it.
yeah,
I think it's supposed to hopefully be done by the 4th, which is the Christmas tree lighting.
yeah, thank you.
That's the hopes from the contractor, and that's what they're saying, is that they can have the pad done by the 4th when the Christmas tree lighting takes place, and then the fencing would come after that. But if that is the case, then hopefully we can get that rink down and that partial fence that it came with up to cover it, but no guarantees on that. At least the pad will be done.
Thank you.
Sean.
Thanks. Any other public comment?
This is public comment based on a meeting, I think a month or two ago, where you were talking about the election voting process. And so I did a little bit of research. It's my research. I could be wrong, but this is what I've found so far related to the election voting process and vendors. Number one, the election commission, Federal Election Commission, actually takes advice from voting machine vendors. They sit on their advisory committees and they consult on a regular basis. The second thing I discovered was during the 2020 election cycle, they had meetings Now, I believe they were secret and illegal meetings, but that is not verified. But they did have meetings, and they changed the procedures at for the last election cycle that previously prevented machines from being connected to the internet, and they changed those so they could be connected to the internet.
And when you're referring to they, are you talking on a state level or a federal?
Federal level,
Okay.
federal elections, and I haven't done anything with the states. It's very difficult to find state information. Number 3, modems were placed in the voting machines. They were supposed to remain disconnected, but I think most of us know at this point that they were connected and they were.
And when you say the voting machines, are you referring to one specific manufacturer, or are you talking
I
about?
think the Dominium and the Smartmatic, but I believe they were connected to all electronic voting machines that were accessed in states that use them. And good question, no, and they were hacked, or at least I know they were hacked. That's up to debate still. And experts do agree that there is no way, goes back to the meeting that we had about them. The experts that I've listened to agree there's really no way to secure the vote using machines, because the way the current digital technologies are so sophisticated, they can actually backdoor them and put the technology into the computer when they build or construct the computer. So I'm not really an IT guy, but I think if you talk to IT people, there's too many ways using machines for them to be hacked or accessed. Even from internally within the machine, they have ways of doing it. I don't get that world, but the experts say that it can even be installed during the construction of the computer. So that's something that when you guys were concerned about using machines, I think your concerns are valid. And I think it's something to explore very thoroughly, prior to the 2022.
So you know, and everybody else knows, when is it, December, that we're having the open house with the? 6th. They'll be in our clerk's office, so public's welcome to come and see how the machines work, the whole process, any questions, and I encourage anybody that can come to come and participate, so,
Thank you.
thanks, Amy.
Any other further public comment? All right, do we have an emotion
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second?
I'll second it.
All right, Brian made the motion, JR second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Hey, Rick,
This conference is no longer being recorded.
the system that we put in,